Every empire thinks it has more time than it does. For Sony, that illusion ended when the Walkman gave way to the iPhone. For today's tech giants, the same illusion could end with AI. In the 1970s, Japan was not yet synonymous with sleek design or cultural exports. Its reputation was for cheap, mass-produced goods of uncertain quality. But within a generation, that image flipped. By the 80s and 90s, Japan was seen as an industrial powerhouse. Its cars dominated global markets. Its electronics, televisions, stereos, computers were considered the best in the world. Movies of the time depicted a future dominated by Japanese businesses. At the center of this transformation was Sony. More than any other company, Sony embodied Japan's rise. It wasn't just a manufacturer, it was a cultural force. The Walkman redefined personal music. Trinitron television set the standard for picture quality. Sony laptops and PlayStations became household names. For a time, Sony was the future. And then, just as quickly, Sony faded. The company shifted its focus from innovation to profit extraction, milking its legacy products instead of reinventing them. Meanwhile, Apple seized the cultural and technological high ground. The iPod replaced the Walkman, the iPhone redefined mobile computing, and MacBook captured the design prestige Sony once held. Sony didn't collapse in a single dramatic battle. It limped away, retreating into a handful of specialized niches, cameras, sensors, gaming consoles, still formidable, but no longer the company that defined the future. The household name became a legacy brand. The lesson is stark. Opting out of innovation is not prudence, it is surrender. Sony's retreat shows what happens when an incumbent stops innovating. Today's AI surge is the mirror image. Incumbents are determined not to repeat that mistake. They are overinvesting, not because they expect every dollar to pay off, but because they know abstention is fatal. The shadow of Sony looms large, a reminder that the real risk is not exuberance, but irrelevance. Every technological revolution attracts its skeptics. In the late 1990s, the internet was dismissed as a passing fad, a playground for hobbyists and speculators. In the mid-2000s, social media was derided as frivolous chatter. Even electricity in its early days was accused of being a dangerous novelty with no practical future. Today, artificial intelligence carries the same burden of suspicion. The refrain is similar. AI is a bubble. On the surface, the critique has weight. Investment is pouring in at unprecedented levels. Startups are multiplying faster than they can differentiate themselves. Valuations are soaring beyond what current revenues justify. And history tells us that many of these firms will fail. The dot-com bust is still fresh in collective memory, and the parallels are easy to draw. But to stop there is to miss the deeper logic. Participation in AI is not simply exuberance. It is a necessity, though the reasons differ depending on who you are. For smaller firms, AI is a speculative play. Startups enter the market not because they expect to outspend Google or Microsoft, but because they believe they can solve a problem the giants can't. They gamble on agility, clever algorithm, on a niche application that scales. Most will fail, but a few will strike gold, and those few will either grow into new powers or be acquired for their talent and technology. For incumbents, AI is a defensive war of endurance. They cannot afford to sit out. Even if they don't expect to dominate, they must outspend and outinvest simply to survive the coming shifts. For them, AI is not a gamble, but an insurance policy against irrelevance. And often, these two logics meet. The startups build what the giants need but cannot develop quickly enough. The giants, flush with capital, buy them out, not for their products, but for their people, their patents, their head start. Speculation and defense fuse into a single ecosystem. This is why calling AI a bubble is misleading. Yes, many small firms will collapse. Yes, valuations are inflated. But the frenzy is not irrational. For the startups, it is a calculated bet on gaps the giants can close. For the giants, it is survival. And for both, participation is the only rational choice. The AI bubble debate is itself an example of drift. Evidence shows both hype and substance, yet critics collapse into a binary, bubble or revolution. ACFO reframes this moment by disciplining the gap between action and evidence. Spot the mismatch. Companies are pouring billions into AI, yet critics point to shaky business models and inflated valuations. The action, massive investment, doesn't line up neatly with the evidence, mixed results. Treat the mismatch as evidence. Instead of asking who is right, the optimists or the skeptics, ACFO says the very fact that action and evidence diverge is meaningful. It signals that another force is driving behavior. Surface the hidden drivers. For critics, it's hindsight bias, the illusion that if collapse comes later, it must have been obvious all along. For participants, it's survival incentives, the logic that abstaining is riskier than losing. Reframe the logic. Once these drivers are exposed, the obvious bubble story loses its grip. Incumbents aren't blindly exuberant. They're hedging against irrelevance. Just as Sony's retreat showed the cost of sitting out. Startups, meanwhile, are fighting for recognition in the frenzy. Some with genuine innovations, others with little more than hype. See the rationality. Rationality here doesn't mean guaranteed success. For incumbents, it means acting in line with survival incentives under uncertainty. Keep spending, keep experimenting, because irrelevance is fatal. For startups, it means opportunistic endurance. Survive long enough to be noticed, funded, or acquired, whether through real breakthroughs or by riding the smoke of the moment. Conclusion. Yes, AI is a bubble. But no, companies are not irrational for participating. They are acting under the shadow of Sony and under the logic of endurance. The real mistake isn't exuberance, it's opting out.